Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk Light, the VCast version of Church Talk and all things church transformation. I'm your host, Dr. Bill Tenney Britton, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Chris Tenney Britton, in our studio in Columbia, Missouri. Say good morning, Chris.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
We'll see how long my voice holds out today.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Good morning. Welcome to Church Talk Radio, all things church transformation. Bill and Chris Tenney Britton here to talk today about a very important topic. It's a marketing topic, actually.
It is. When you're much more, you know a lot more about than I do. It's going to be an interesting program.
Well, but the reality is we're talking about web empowering your church website, web empowering your church. And really, it's helpful to have someone who is more of a novice. You're not really a total novice. You can actually work your way around a website pretty well.
Yeah, as long as you're there or my administrator's there. I can work my way around the front end, up front of the websites, but it's when I have to go to the back and do things for them that's
the fact
problem.
that you know the difference between the front end and the back end probably outdoes a whole lot of folks who are listening.
True.
So
talk about coded language
yes,
here, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Front end of your website, that's the page that everyone looks at. The back end of your website is what you look at when you're working on it.
And they don't always look the same.
And they don't always look the same, front end to back end. In fact, they generally don't look the same.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us. And we are talking about why you need to have a website. Well, okay, a little bit about that. But mostly we're going to talk about how to maximize your website and what you can do to take it up to the next level. Mm-hmm. But I do want to start off with the reasons why you need to have a website, because there may be, just possibly, a few listeners who are at a church that don't have a website yet, or leaders in a church who may go to, like pastors who get moved or are hired by a church that doesn't yet have a website, and they need a case to say, hey, we need a website. And so So what are some of the reasons why you need a website?
Well, isn't it 85% of people who come to your church, guests who come, they check your website out first?
According to Technology for Ministries, who does a lot of research on website use, 85% of all first-time guests come after they've looked at a church website. In fact, they begin their search for what church to visit in the community by going to the church's web, or going to the Google or Bing or somewhere, and do a search for a church on the website. And 85% of them check out your site before they find your church.
You know, every time we say that figure, people are really kind of surprised by that. But the other piece that I'm surprised is how many pastors don't check out other churches' websites or even think to check websites. I get calls from people or emails from people that are considering congregations that I serve that are interested in finding out or interested in applying for positions, pastoral positions. And I'll say to them, have you gone up and checked any of these websites? Because generally the email says something like, I would really like to be considered for a pastorate at such and such, such and such, such and such, and such churches. And I'll say, well, have you checked out any of their websites to see if you might be a match for them? And the majority of the time, those pastors have not checked out those churches.
You need to check out the churches. Okay, so 85% of folks are looking at your website before they go to church. So right off the bat, if you don't have a website, you're not even in the running for a lot of first-time guests. So you absolutely have to have that. But there's another good reason.
Right, and it's your cheapest reach. I mean, when you think about that.
It's your cheapest opportunity, right?
To
exactly.
reach people, yeah.
Right. It's for marketing purposes, except for word-of-mouth marketing, there is nothing less expensive than a website. Period. And if you're paying a lot of money for a website, we'll talk about that at the very end of the show, but if you're paying a lot for your website and for hosting and et cetera, we're going to offer a couple alternatives, because frankly, you shouldn't be paying more than even a fairly large church, a church of 500 shouldn't really have to be paying more than maybe $30 to $40 a month for their website and for their hosting. Now, they may have full-time people working on their website. That gets costly, but you shouldn't have to be spending all that kind of money for a website. So it's very inexpensive. Of course, that it's inexpensive, presuming, of course, that if you type in your church name or whatever in Google, and that is still the #1 search engine, that you show up on the first page or so. If you are buried in number 100, no one's finding you anyway.
Yeah, that's very true.
And there's a third reason why you need to have a website, and that is because the reach of your ministry is broadened significantly. You know, everything on the web is available pretty much globally. And so if you put your website out there, you know, someone in Singapore, Japan, Africa, China, etc., can see that website. And so, you know, you expanded your reach beyond your local neighborhood and community. And that's, of course, one of the reasons we're talking about this today, is because we don't want to just talk about why you should have a website or what you should have on your website, but how do you make it a web empowering website, a ministry that reaches people beyond just your community as well as your community?
Well, I want to say this, and this may be kind of jumping ahead a little bit to what we should have and what we must have on our websites. But I've been hearing that, you know, by 2020, maybe even before 2020, but definitely within the next 10 years, most of giving will be in churches will be done either through automatic deductions or debit cards or whatever. And your website really is this neat way to set up for mission and ministry. So, you know, donations into ministry, but there are churches that are extending their missional reach because people are able to give via their websites. So there's a church in Atlanta, I wish I could tell you exactly which church that is, that they were the third largest giver of tents to Haiti after the earthquake.
Yep.
And the only two places or people, not even people, that gave more, one was China and the second was the United States. And then this church, it only has about 200, 300 members. And so much of that was because you could go up there and click and give tents to, you know, donate money to give. So it really increases, particularly in this world today, our mission and ministry reaches.
Exactly. The use of your website is way beyond what we used to think. And we'll talk a little bit about the used to think here pretty soon.
Sure. So,
okay.
so let's talk about must-haves.
Yeah, let's talk about must-haves. Let's just start off right off talking about what your website must have. And what's really sad for me, and sort of surprising, I guess, but mostly sad, is how many churches violate this very first thing. Church, on your homepage, above the fold, if you will, that means no scrolling, and you shouldn't have to click any links whatsoever. On that first part of your homepage, you should have these two things. You should have your service day and time. No one should have to look for that. They shouldn't even have to click one single time for that. They ought to be able to see it right now, what your service days and service times are. And the second thing, they need to see in that space or in that, you know, no scrolling and no links, they should see your address. Now, it's great to have your address linked to a map, but they shouldn't even have to click on the word directions to find that. It should be right there because people today, you know, with smartphones and GPSs, they're really more interested, many people are more interested in just your straight address, make sure you have your zip code, your straight address, than they are going to Google Maps or a MapQuest or whatever to print a map.
But can't you do, what are those called, a link, so that you have your address, and if you click on the address, it will take you to the map?
Absolutely, and that's a great feature
hyperlink.
because there's hyperlink, a link. That's absolutely a great feature. You should have it.